the way we talk to ourselves, the way we explain to ourselves, what we say, the voices in our head, we would never say to anyone else. We are so cruel. And when I recognized how trapped I was to myself, how I was destroying myself, that's where I started.
Hello and welcome back to the Ignition Path podcast. My name is Kyle Goodknight. And before we get too far into the show, just want to make sure you like, subscribe, and share. If you hear something that resonates with you or anybody else that you know and they need to hear this message in this episode today, don't be afraid to go ahead and share it and let that person know that you've got something awesome for them to see. So today's guest is Sherry Kennedy, and she is a life coach and a published author. The Ignition Path podcast is about, the Ignition Path is how did we ignite our entrepreneurial path is what the podcast is about. So I'm going to dive in a little bit with Sherry about what she did prior to what she's doing now and the path that she took to get there. So say hi to Sherry and let us know a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into it.
Hi, everyone. So grateful to be here with you all. Yes, my name's Sherry Kennedy, as you said, and I am a certified master life coach. I'm also an energy healer, and I'm working on my hypnotherapy. I published my first book, Ignite Your Light Within, Discover Your Inner Spark and Radiate Your True Potential. I published that last year after I faced some major traumas. I found out that I was not able to have a child, and it destroyed me. It destroyed me. And I went down this path of needing to reflect and go deep. At the age of 16, I had made an attempt on my life, and I had those same emotions when this came forward. Except now my prefrontal cortex, it's now developed, and I was not spiraling out of control. So I was ready to go deep, and it led me to this path here to help others do the same.
That's fantastic. So, while it's fantastic that you're helping people do the same, it's not fantastic that you face those life challenges. By all means, probably one of the toughest things that a woman could go through is not being able to have a child. I've known people that have been in that situation. We had a little bit of, my wife and I had a little bit of a struggle with getting pregnant ourselves. But, we were able to have them, but we'd had to do some special things to get things in check. So I sympathize with you and empathize with your situation, and so sorry that you had to go through that. And just to know that you're out there wanting to make something that was so horrible in your life, what you learned from it and the wisdom that you took from it to bring to others speaks volumes of your character. And I've only met you now twice, so I can only imagine. And I do follow you on social. I've been watching your TikToks and all your reels and stuff. And you get real into it and tell people, talk to people about their passions and stuff. So I love watching those. They're very inspirational. If we'll get by the end of the episode, we'll get and share all the different places where people can find you so they can watch those same messages. So what did you do? So get back to the Ignition Path concept. What did you do prior to this? Were you in the corporate world? When did you realize that you were an entrepreneur, that you wanted to have your own, you wanted to direct your own life when it came to what you do for a living?
Yeah, I actually worked my way up in the oil and gas, corporate oil and gas, was last my last position. I worked for a major oil company. I was in Indigenous and community relations. So I actually helped with sharing their project fronts to the Indigenous communities here in Northern Alberta in the oil sands. And yeah, I was very passionate about helping Indigenous communities, and the position itself wasn't exactly what I thought it was. I was all about, I knew I'm on this earth to help people, and I really thought this position would make me feel that way. However, it was the complete opposite. I literally came home every day crying, destroyed, because I was the face of this company pushing the project work when it wasn't who I was. I just wanted to shed a light and help people, and it was very difficult for me. And when I went through that, I had to have the surgery when I was at that position, and I started doing the deep work deep studying, went all in on my spiritual path. And I realized that my true calling was to help others no matter what. And the company actually had major layoffs coming up. And I made the decision to ask to be one of the people to be laid off.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
That was
still
I bet you that was a scary day. You're like, hey, can you go ahead and lay me off too?
Yeah.
But when we have those crossroads and and we know that we're meant for more, and what was that decision like that? If it goes back to a day or a week or a month that you went through that, talk to us a little bit about your thought process to get you to that point where you're like, you know what, go ahead and lay me off. Go ahead and give me my severance. I've got something bigger and better. Like talk to me about, or talk to the audience about that, and what that decision process went through. Because there could be people out there right now that are working a 9 to 5 in the corporate world, but they know they're meant for more, and they want to hear about how someone else had done it and what they went through. It could be very similar to them, and you could give them inspiration once again, like you do with so many other people on your socials.
Yes, it was actually my why. It was my why. I knew that there was people out there who were stuck, who were struggling like I previously was. And when I went through the process of actually writing my book, I went back and forth on whether I was going to publish it or not because I faced a lot of traumas. I hid a lot of stuff in my path and I didn't want to share it and put it out there for everybody. However, I knew I had this voice deep within me telling me that this is what I'm supposed to do. I truly believe that we're all on this earth for a reason, for a purpose, for a mission. And I knew my mission was to go all in to try to tap in and do my why and figure out how I can help others break through who were stuck going through those traumatic events and playing them on repeat and not able to evolve to those next steps. So it was
Right.
tapping into my why.
Well, and you and I coming from the background that we do with the mastermind group, we know
Yeah.
how to get to our why.
Yes.
and I've Dean says it so great. Oh, I just moved for some reason I got a new studio here. I mentioned that earlier in our pre-call, and I just kicked something underneath my desk, and the camera went wonky. But Dean talks about if your why doesn't make you cry, you're not at your real why. So, he also does and I know that you've gone through it, and I've gone through it as well. And if nobody knows what the 7 layers deep technique is, 7 layers deep is how Sherry and myself got to our whys.
Yes.
Look it up. It's intense. You got to be ready for it. Don't take it lightly, and you do need to have someone that, when you do it yourself, I found that I kind of give up a little bit early, and I'm not as deep as I need to be. When I've done it with other people and I've been trying to, deepen my why. And let's say Sherry is the recipient of me telling her what my why is. And then the next one is, well, why do you feel that? And then, so when I've done it with other people, I get way deeper and I like it better. So if you don't know what 7 layers deep is, find someone there. Sherry can take you through it. I can take you through it. People that have been through our programs that we've been through, and the community that we're how we met in the mastermind community, those people will totally help you dive deep into your why. So did you do that? Did you do that with someone else, or did you do it on your own? The 7 layers deep.
Multiple times, like with someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a journal where I
Mm-hmm.
just like I do it all the time because you think
Yep.
something's one thing, and then when you really
Yep.
go deep, it's like,
Whoa.
yeah,
And it's not something you're going to figure out. And
no,
Dean has a way of pulling it out of you in the moment. Like I remember him telling a story about he had someone on stage, and he's like, "Oh, I know my why. I did my 7 layers deep." And then Dean got a hold of him, and someone that was well and practiced and how to push the right buttons per se, not to upset them or anything like that, but to go deeper. And he basically by the end of the conversation, this other gentleman, he had gone like 5 or 6 more layers deep, and it was bawling, I guess.
yes.
So yeah. So, and that's okay. And going back to what you mentioned before, and not being afraid to share your path and share that is huge. I mean, you may or may not know, but my audience definitely knows, and people that are first time tuning into the Ignition Path podcast. I'm a paramedic full time. Been in the healthcare field for almost 30 years. I had a blind side, and one day I came home from work and I thought everybody in my township was dead. And I was like, I've got to go back. There was a carbon monoxide issue. We had a bunch of carbon monoxide runs, and I freaked out. And that was my mental breakdown that day. Come to find out, it was something to do with my childhood, and I had a friend of mine who almost passed away from carbon monoxide, and then a couple of very serious carbon monoxide runs happened in a row to me, and it is now what I consider my trigger. And people know to reach out to me and to make sure that I'm doing okay after one of those type of runs. I'm okay in the moment. I'm okay with anything in the moment. In the moment, I do my job. I do it right. I have my experience and all that. But I say all this to get to the point where if you're out there listening and you're fretting being yourself, and you're fretting and worried about people judging you, you know what? Fuck them. Pardon my French. But forget about people, because it is your life. And if you want to share your feelings, go ahead. You know what? If they think you're weak, they're the ones that are weak, because the strongest I've ever been was the day that I raised my hand. The strongest, I'm sure, the day that Sherry ever was the day that she decided that she wasn't going to go back to the corporate and she was going to start a new path to help other people. Explain what that went through, that thought process for yourself. Like when you finally were like, you know what? Blank everybody else. I mean, for the most part, I want to help people, but I should say the negative Nancys of the world and the judgers, that's what I mean by that.
I'll turn back, like, I am so grateful to that company. Like, it was my dream. It was my goal to get there, because I'll be honest, I was on the streets doing some bad things, and I made it my goal to get to this company. And this company absolutely transformed my life. And I'm so grateful for the journey and growth it brought me. However, I also realized that life's a transition and you can't stay in that one spot. And I was ready to go deeper. And people judge. People were like, why would you give up? That's such an amazing role, amazing position. Like, this is a prestige company to be with. And a lot of people don't even know that I volunteered to get laid off. Like, this is big for me to even share that. But you know what? I don't care. I love who I am. I trust in my decisions, and I'm not gonna hide in the shadows anymore. And there was a reason that happened, and the reason was is I got to tap in and do what I'm supposed to do. I got to go deep. I spent hours. I spent so much time in my growth and my self-development so I can help others do the same. And I just feel so ignited, so driven, so alive because I've done that. Even though my bank account might say different at the time being, it's worth it, right?
Yeah, right.
It's worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another thing, us entrepreneurs, we get ourselves in trouble when it comes financially. We do things because we're like, this isn't where I'm supposed to be. It'll work out. It'll work out. It'll come about. It'll come about. But I'm not fulfilled unless I'm doing what my end desire needs to be. Now, I'm in a lucky position. When I'm on the medic and I'm serving my community, that's part of my why. So I've got a full-time job where I don't get shocked by the handle when I go to work anymore, like Office Space. I've worked the corporate world worse. I know what anxiety is now because I worked the corporate world. Give me a cardiac arrest or someone that can't breathe way before put me into a corporate society. Maybe that's just my background and my training, but I am cool as a cucumber on those kind of runs, and I was a nervous wreck in the corporate world. So it's just, I don't know if that was the fear or imposter syndrome or what it could have been. Either way, I didn't like it. I had to give it up, and I went back to the clinical side of things. So, tell us about when it comes to that fear that you felt, and as you're growing your business, as you're starting your business, and I wanted to make sure that I commented the fact that you used the word ignite in your discussion, and that's a lot of times when I talk to people, because the ignition path is kind of subconsciously in their brain, they use words like ignite. And then when I'm on my Elevate podcast, they were like, I want to just elevate myself. And I'm like, yeah, you did it. Like that was a shameless plug. That was actually worked out. But talk to us about the fear and some of the times that you were backed up against the wall in this process and what you had to do to overcome that.
Oh man, I've faced so many challenges throughout this time, and number one is the self-doubt. It's the imposter syndrome. It's the unknown. This is all new to me. Like when I first started going in, I've always had a support system, a cushion, someone to guide me, and basically I'm free falling. So you're free falling, trying to figure it out. But the community, the community that we have, their support, their love, their guidance, and honestly, it's falling in love with myself. When I fell in
Mm,
love with myself and didn't need anything external to fill me up, I just felt free. So yeah, I'm scared, but I do it anyway. And if I mess up, whatever, that's part of life. I feel like life's like a video game, right? You go through it and oh yeah, you may die, but you know what? You get another shot. You get to go again. So for me, yeah, I'm like, what? You did die. I'm just gonna keep going further. Yeah, keep going, get to restart, keep going. So for me, I kind of like that adrenaline. I'm almost adrenaline junkie, and I'm ready to take that next path, that next step, regardless of how scared I feel to my core. I'm doing it anyway.
that's awesome. And I'm so happy that you said that you had to love yourself because that actually leads to my sponsor. I don't know if you know this, I haven't announced it yet, but I've got a new sponsor for all my podcasts, and I'm going to go ahead and talk about that for a quick second, then we'll get back into the rest of the podcast. But so word from our sponsor. Let me ask you a question. Would your life be better if whatever you're struggling with, you could finally break free of? So what am I talking about? The Funky Five. What's the Funky Five, you ask? It's those oh-so-familiar struggles: procrastination, people-pleasing, perfectionism, low self-confidence, and the one I call the big A, anxiety. For years, I struggled to manage my own version. I call them my Funky Three. I had three of these Funky Five weighing me down. I've tried just about everything to deal with them. Then a guest on my podcast, Daniel Packard, shared with me a profound thought that I had never thought of. So Daniel, a UC Berkeley engineer, spent 8 years working with his team and over 3,000 people to create an approach that doesn't just help you manage these issues, it actually frees you from them by getting right to the root of what's holding you back. So after meeting with Daniel, I decided to give it a shot, and within 6 short weeks, gone. Truly gone. I was so amazed. The number one thing I was dealing with was procrastination. But miraculously, a deeper-rooted struggle with people-pleasing, something I'd been unknowingly battling for a lifetime, lifted entirely. And the anxiety that came with them both, gone as well. Are you tired of battling any of your Funky Fives? People-pleasing, procrastination, perfectionism, low self-confidence, and the biggest happy killer of them all, the A word, anxiety. Imagine how much better life would be if you weren't just managing these things, but free of them, quickly, and yes, permanently. If you're ready for a real solution, head to danielpackard.com and get his free 90-minute training. Daniel himself will walk you through what makes his approach so different and teach you a technique you can use immediately to start feeling the difference. So if any of the Funky Five, or maybe your own version of the Funky Five, are holding you back, don't wait. Visit danielpackard.com. You can truly get results and start living the life you want. And we're back with Sherry, of course, and don't forget to go ahead and go to Daniel's website and get that free 90-minute training that he offers. It's going to be very impactful for anybody that takes a shot at trying to deal with the Funky Five. So, Sherry, let's talk a little bit about what your system is and what you offer people when it comes to what you've created. So talk to us about your coaching system and all of that.
Yes. So I actually set up a Purpose Ignite program. So it's a 10-week system that the foundation is self-love. I feel that's for me is what helped me transform the most. I couldn't do anything without that foundational piece. If you look, most people, the way we talk to ourselves, the way we explain to ourselves, what we say, the voices in our head, we would never say to anyone else. We are so cruel. And when I recognized how trash I was to myself, how I was destroying myself, that's where I started. That's where I started. And when I removed those demons, those inner demons, and was able to look in that mirror and say that I love myself and truly mean it and embody it, that's when I transform. So the foundation of my program is the self-love, but it's all about mindset transformations. I truly believe that once we are conscious of what we are saying, where we are putting our focus, and how we are treating ourselves, we're able to remove that subconscious level, those layers that are deep within, because we're now conscious of it. We're now aware of it. So we work through in a 10-week program how to identify our blocks and how to release them so we can allow our energy to flow through emitting that self-love. Like for me, it's all about that self-love
Right.
piece.
And I'm so glad you mentioned energy. That there's a lot of talk about energy in the self-help world, and naysayers are like, oh, energy, what is that? And people have to understand we are energy beings, and I can prove it right now that we're energy, that we have energy within us and flowing throughout us, because we're talking and we're alive because our hearts beating and keeping our energy going. We are electrical beings. And if we weren't, we wouldn't have a spark every time our heart goes lub, because lub is when it hits, when our heart fires and sends the signal to make it beat. That is an electrical signal. I can prove it too by putting somebody on an EKG and measuring how strong their electrical system is. So, if talk a little bit about the energy and what kind of work you had to do to come to the realization, and how you teach people. I mean, without giving too much of your system away, because we want to make sure people reach out to you if they want to know more about this stuff. But let's talk about the energy a little bit, and where you found and the aha moments you've had for that.
Well, it's really understanding, if you take absolutely anything, you could take this microphone, you could take a human, you could take a rock. If you bring it into a microscope scope to that subatomic level, it's all the exact same. It's all the exact same. It's all energy. And when I learned that, that absolutely blew me away. You're telling me that absolutely everything in this world, when you bring it down to that subatomic level, it's all the same stuff. We're all connected. We're all united. So I went deep on understanding the quantum physics and understanding why energy is so important. When I realized that it's everything, it truly is everything. And energy is our emotions, and energy emotion is emotion. So absolutely everything thrives from it. That's where it starts. And I was stuck. I was stuck in my trauma. I was stuck in depression. I was stuck in that victim mindset. So I was vibing low. And energy attracts like energy. And no wonder I was constantly dealing with the same difficult experiences, because that's the energy that I was attracting. And when I learned how to clear my blockages, how to release those energy flows and have it flowing constant at that high vibing state, my whole life transformed. And we have the power to do that. We each and every one have the power to transform the energy that we emit and be these powerful light beings. And I love to help people do that so we can get out of our own way. It's you. It's you.
Yes,
It's your
exactly.
way.
It's like, if you could just get out of your own way, you may actually make something of yourself.
That's
And
right.
and it's one of those things where, you and I both lived this in general. I mean, I'm only assuming, but I can almost guarantee you've lived this, and it's called the crazy cycle. I can't remember what book it was in, but that I read that in. But the crazy cycle is not mine. It's I think it's Love and Respect is the book that came in. And the crazy cycle is that negative thought followed by another negative thought from someone else, and you don't do something good for them because they don't do something good for you. So if you turn that lens into yourself, and you think, okay, I'm thinking negatively about myself, so therefore I'm going to not feel positive about myself, so therefore I'm in this crazy cycle, and it's a spiral. And you and I have both been there, because of knowing that, just the little that you've spoke and the traumas that you've dealt with, and the hardships you've been through, and we've both been there. And it is so true. When it's negative energy, you're going to get negative energy coming back. When it's positive energy, just try it. Go out there and just, no matter what happens for a day and a half, 2 days, make it a week. No matter what happens, just think, okay, what did I learn from this? What was the wisdom that this negative situation taught me? And you're already starting to think on the positive side of things when you do that. So there, Sherry is very good with helping you find that. I know her background when it comes to what she's been taught, because I was taught the same thing because I was in the same program. So it's one of those things where if you're having problems with that negative self-talk, don't hesitate to reach out to Sherry and find out what she does, what she's packaged, and how she can help you through that. Because ultimately, and it's not just a one and done thing. This is a life-changing, life daily process, right, Sherry?
Oh yeah. It's the inner work, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you fall. I mean, talk about a time when you had that positive and everything was going great, and then something devastating happened. And that and it doesn't mean that negativity is not going to come into your life, but how did you bring yourself back when something big, I think not being able to, get pregnant, it's a huge one, but maybe after that one, because that was the straw that broke the camel's back to get you into this type of work. But talk about one when you're like, man, I really got it going on. Like, tell us one story about when you thought you had everything together with this new path and something bad happened, and what was the process to get you out of that?
I was just recently asked to do something that I really didn't want to do. It's to do this presentation in front of this group that I really do not want to be in front of. And, I was telling myself, I really don't want to do this. Like, why do I have to do this? And I paused and I reflected and I thought about it. And I recognized, like, I truly believe that everything comes across your path for a reason. There is a reason
Mm,
why I have to do this. And when I was able to pause and reflect and look at it from the witness standpoint and really recognize the gifts that I can bring by doing this, the impact that I can bring, although, I feel uncomfortable at first about it, when I'm able to shift my perspective and see what good can come from this, what positive can I put out there by doing this? It transformed my whole outlook about doing it. And I know that it's going to go amazing. And I know I'm going to slay it because that's who I am. So it's just, right? It's just flipping the script, taking that time, breathing, and just stepping
wow.
back as a witness, right?
Yeah.
Observing the whole situation, not just being right in the middle of it. Yeah.
Well, and you hit you hit a huge factor of really putting this practice into that we speak of today, and that's breathing, because we know that breath work is a very good form of controlling your central nervous system. So if you don't believe that, just look at what happens. I'm not trying to, um, you know, I'm just getting ready to put my foot in my mouth when it comes to people that are pregnant when they're delivering babies. They do breath work, but I'm sure that that we have to talk about that kind of stuff anyhow. So sorry if that hit
Oh,
wrong,
no. Oh,
but yeah, it's one of those things where that's proof. That's proof right there that and same thing when it comes to. I remember one time when I had my knee blown out. I had surgery and I had this tube in my knee. And the doctor was like, okay, this is what I want you to do, right before he pulled this tube that ended up being like 14 inches long down my leg to drain it. And he told me to this certain way of breathing before he pulled it out. And then after he pulled it out and it almost knocked the wind out of me because it hurt so bad, he continued to coach me on how to breathe. And it was like all of a sudden the pain went away. So we know that breathing is a very, very important aspect of almost everything you do when you do that self inner healing. So, I'm sure that there's a big part of the system that talks about breathing, that you put out there. So tell us how to find what you do, what your socials are, your website, your how do people get a hold of you if they're interested in exploring this area that you've spent so much time in perfecting?
Yeah, you can go to igniteyourlightwithin.com. I have all my socials listed on there. You can find me on Facebook, on Instagram. My book's available online as well. But yeah, that's my website, and I have a whole bunch of content, some free stuff on there for you as well.
Cool, cool. And all of that stuff will, of course, be in the show notes. If there's something that you want to give me later on that we can put in, for, the free stuff, I can put that in. Or if there's just going to your website is the best way. Either way, we'll touch base on that later. So, anything else that you want to talk about, Sherry, before we get going?
No, I just like to say you only have one opportunity in life, like at this time. And when that hit me, that was profound. And I want you to take the opportunity to live the life of your dreams. I've learned that so many people who are on their deathbed reflecting back have those regrets. I should have done it differently. I wish I had done that. I can truly say that I'm not going to regret. There's no regrets because I went all in, and I want you to be able to do the same. So live the life of your dreams by tapping into who you truly are, find your purpose, and just go hard.
Yeah, if you when you start following Sherry, and I invite everybody to at least follow her on Facebook and Instagram. I'll tell you what, she's got some content that you're like, yeah, like when you're done listening to her, you're like, let's do it, let's go. It's like this like, because she gets this look in her eye. It's like my mom passed away back in 2000, but my mom was a very strong-willed woman back in a time when women didn't have much of a voice. She was like, nope, well, fuck that. I'm going to be a strong voice. And my mom could just look at us kids and we'd be like instantly shaped up, right? And I'm telling you what, there's a couple of times when you're putting your message out there, it's not in a mean way or a negative way, but it's like, it's a no bullshit way of like getting yourself checked. And I love your messages. I love when you get on and you talk about the stuff you talk about. You have this passion, you can see in it. And that's exactly why, we do this, why we podcast, why we have guests on. I want people to see that there's other people out there that have a passion that you may still need to help bring you out of it, that's listening. So reach out to Sherry if you feel that your passion's not there yet. Trust me when I tell you, she will be able to pull that passion out of you and help guide you. And Sherry, thanks so much for coming on the Ignition Path podcast today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All
I'm
right.
so grateful.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to Ignition Path, fueling the entrepreneurial fire.